Utah, BYU. Utah just beat TCU. BYU's pretty good this year. What are your expectations for this trip? What do you want to see from your team during this 2-game road trip?
Yeah, I mean, I think the unique challenge is the quick turnaround. It's playing at altitude. We've certainly been drinking our beet juice for a few weeks in preparation. But, I think Utah, obviously we want to go win. I mean, I think that's the goal. I mean, if you want to stay in the hunt for a conference championship, your goal is to win every game you play. I think Utah has been playing really, really well the last couple weeks. Obviously, they lost on a buzzer beater basically to Arizona State at home and then beat TCU and then went on the Kansas swing and kind of handled business. So, I think they're a team that trusts their actions and works the ball. And, you don't necessarily point to any one player. I think they're a team full of really good players that can beat you with their ball movement and their execution. And so it's going to be a unique challenge. BYU presses, and they're young, and they just play so dang hard, and they turn people over. And so you've got two contrasting styles on the road.
Do you, at this point in the season, do you talk to your team about polls? And, you win 2 games and you drop two spots in the poll.
But did you vote 18?
I put you 18. I bumped you up 2 spots.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All good.
Hey, I was gonna say those idiot AP
yeah,
voters.
Yeah, no, it's.
Do you talk to your team about polls?
No, not really. I think it's was I surprised? Yes. But I can also appreciate the thing about me is I watch so many games, and so I have a great appreciation for the game and other successes and whatever. And I think when you start getting into, did Kentucky beat LSU? Did so-and-so, we can play that game all day and it's never perfect. Because there's so many factors that are in that. Kentucky didn't have Key when they lost to Alabama. You start to do that. I firmly believe, people should understand we didn't have Talia when we got beat by Texas Tech. Does that mean I didn't believe we could win without her, or that I don't have great respect for what Tech is doing? Because I do. But I can also look at a Michigan State and say they were in a 1-point game at Oregon, and had Oregon won that game, they don't bump up 9 spots, So there were teams that lost ahead of us that they didn't drop below us, and teams that had really good wins behind us that obviously jumped us. And so, I don't know. It's a long season. Let's talk about wins above the bubble. No, because we're in
Nikki, Bugs is pretty consistent anyway, but this last stretch seems like I think she's missed 1 shot in the last 2
probably
games.
should have been on the team of the week. Who do I have to blame for that, Colin?
There you go. Yeah, it's Colin's fault. But is she just clicking better, blending better, or what has been the difference, if there's been a difference in her?
Yeah, I think Bugs is picking her spots. I think she's not pressing. I think she knows this league. So I don't think there's a, where I think that statistically, she has a feel for what she can do against these opponents. And, I just think she's playing a little more free. I mean, I think she went through that stretch where, all this external and internal pressure to be a senior and the captain and to come into her own. And, every year you have a slightly different role and this and that, and understanding that she is who she is because of what she does. And if she just leans into the things that she does, I used to tell every player I brought into training camp as a pro, and believe me, they're all coming to training camp with this goal to be paid to play basketball. And I know they get paid in college now, so it's how crazy. But at the time, it's the competition in training camp was you had a hard time explaining it to young players who'd never been through it, because now you're talking about fighting with adults for a paycheck. And so, once that roster is established, there's there's camaraderie built. But before then, and if I brought a player in either because I drafted them or I brought them in on a free agency deal or just a training camp contract, it's like, show me what you can do, not what you can't do. Because there's a reason I brought you here, and it's because what you can do. So if you run out here and think I got to do all these other things to prove that I belong on this team, and do a bunch of things that you can't do, you're not going to look good, and therefore you're not going to make the team. And so I think with Bugs, it was just this idea of, like, you are who you are, and it's special, like, and it's enough, and it's put you on these draft boards, and people scheme to keep you off the glass, and it still doesn't work. And so, I think from that perspective, it's just leaning into, like, the player that she is, and it doesn't mean that she doesn't have room for growth or she isn't going to continue to become a better player and better at other things. But when she leans into the things she's good at, she's super productive.
Nikki, during the 4-game win streak, you closed out 3 pretty close games and then some distance against Kansas on Sunday. But what do you want the team to take away about closing out games from this stretch, whether it's tight like Iowa State or whether it's just not letting the team even kind of have any hope like you want to do against Kansas?
Yeah, I felt like in some ways, when Kansas took out Nichols, it is like, is that the white flag? And then I thought I felt like I was watching Texas San Antonio all over again, just like maybe 6 minutes earlier. I thought we went through a spell of taking quick shots that we didn't need to take and then giving up threes when we didn't need to give up threes. And I thought we lost our focus, and no coach wants to have to call a timeout, and it's part of the game and it's part of teaching. But, I always remember, like, that's my job is to teach, and we're not a team with 8 seniors, all in the rotation. And it doesn't mean that our seniors aren't making mistakes too, and so, I just want us to continue to grow, whether it's a 1-point game and we're managing time. Like I very specifically told them if they scored to call a timeout, and we didn't. Like, those are the kind of things at the end of the game that, we can't make mistakes, whether we're up 12, up 18, or up 2. So, we didn't watch it. The last game, we watched all of our late possessions and how we could have been better. In this game, we moved forward, but we talked about how we have to listen. We have to listen better, and so I thought I think we just lost our focus a little bit. So I think we need to stay focused. And it obviously had been a while since we had some cushion. So, it was the first opportunity we probably had to lose focus. I don't think kids lose focus in 1-point and 2-point games or 2-possession games.
Hi, Coach. Playing in Salt Lake for the first time, and earlier in the season, you guys played in France for the first time. What do you kind of do when you guys go to a location that y'all haven't been before? Is there kind of like a different preparation you give them, or is it kind of just like it's just another road game?
No, I mean, honestly, like, France was different because we were in France and we needed to experience it, and we were there 3 days early and, had opportunity to do things. I mean, we're obviously not flying in until this evening. So we're keeping our normal practice here, travel, get in, have a good meal, and then go through game day preparations. I played, not as a player, but as a coach when I was at Colorado State. We were in the Mountain West with Utah, and Elaine Elliott was the coach, and now she's their TV color person. So it's fun to listen to her during the games that I was watching. But always had great respect for their fans and the way they show up. And, we're just getting ready to play a good opponent. So nothing really different than normal.
Good morning, Coach.
Good morning.
I just have a question about Inez. I think you had mentioned a couple press conferences ago that, you didn't want to just throw her into the lion's den. And maybe some of us were kind of expecting her to be kind of put in at the end of that Kansas game. Any plans on putting her in sometime soon? And how's her journey here been so far?
You know what? I would have loved to have put her in the Kansas game. But when it went from 21 to 11 or whatever it was pretty quickly, I didn't feel like I thought the group that was out there needed to right the ship, which they did, before I went that route. I don't have a timeline. Nez has now been in practice for 1 week. And so to me, I see good things. I see glaring deficiencies just because of lack of practice time, not because lack of talent. Kid's an elite passer, might be the best passer in the gym. But it's just a tough time. So I think practice time will dictate. We always tell them, that as much as they think, especially this time of year, that practice somehow isn't as important, they show us in every practice whether we can trust them to play, whether they understand the game plan, whether they, we're teaching thing to Nez that you'd think she would have picked up by osmosis, but honestly, she hasn't had any reps. The kid has had no reps. She has literally been on the floor realistically for a week, and even load managed at that, so not getting as many reps. I'll be excited to get her out there, but I want her to be ready.
Markayla really hasn't, she hasn't played the same amount of minutes that she has in the first part of the season in the last few games. Is there a wall or something that she has to kind of fight through as a freshman, or maybe it's just, Ting kind of playing better, but how is Markayla kind of progressing through her freshman year?
Yeah, I don't think it isn't Ting, which seems like it is because Ting's playing more. But if you look at Markayla's minutes, it was as kind of the backup to Jana Talia. We've struggled with the small lineup. I have played her at the 3 some, but this team has not been uber productive when we've gone with 3 littles. That's what we call them, our 3 littles. So Markayla was getting more minutes early for Jana, and then kind of in that rotation. She would go in early for Jana, stay in, and Jana would come in for Talia. And I think a couple things have happened. One, Jana's gotten significantly better. And so, that 28 minutes, it's easier to turn into 35. We've been in a lot of close games. Markayla is really, really valuable to us. And I think it's hard because you go from playing 32 games in a row because you start to, 8 or 4. And, having those discussions with her about the value of at the beginning of the season. And I do think freshmen hit walls, and they come in different phases. Hers came probably a little later. The beauty of Markayla is she has this, her superpower. I told her superpower is whether she's faking it or not, her unwavering confidence, in her ability to go get a shot, and her ability, I've never had a player that talked to herself out loud so much. And it caught me off guard at first, and now I'm just that's she's hyping herself. There's an energy about the way she plays. But if you think about early in the season, we could give her one job, guard the ball really, really hard. And she changed the game by coming in and giving us a ball hawk. Now all of a sudden you're playing Samaya Nichols and you want size on her, or you're playing Jada Williams, who would be a good player for her to ball hawk, but our defensive game plan was to play off her, or if she's in ball screens to be able to switch, and she can't switch on Addie Brown. And so, now all of a sudden that thing that got you on the floor that allowed you to impact the game isn't always the same thing every game. And also I've told her at the beginning of the year, no one had a scouting report on you. No one had a scouting report when we played Duke. Now everyone's got the scouting report. Now you've got stats. Now people are deciding to go under screens, and they're deciding, and so, she just has to trust that she's going to get opportunity every game, and she can't press to try to do something. It goes back to that, show me what you can do, not what you can't do. When she presses and takes a shot that she doesn't need to take, or misses a defensive assignment, it becomes more glaring than when you're just playing, So trying to get her to understand her value, and that we believe in her, because we really do. The kid is uber talented. She can make plays that other people can't make. She can't press. She can't try to. No one's in the gym more than her. She wins the award for gym time. The kid is in the gym. And so it comes down to, what does this game call for from me? And I told her, I'm defensive rebound, get on the glass, just allow your energy. Don't place your value on whether you score a basket or don't score a basket, because if you place your value on helping your team win, whether it's getting a rebound, getting a stop, getting through a screen, whatever those things are, I thought she guarded Maupin very, very well in the Tech game. The offense is going to come, but if you press, if the first possession you're in, you go try to score and you take a tough shot, and then you miss a defensive assignment, then we're okay, is she ready for this moment? And so that's the thing with her. I think she's pressing it in her head, most freshmen get at some point, where one game we're icing and the next game we're hard hedging, and then the next game, and it's it's a lot, and every freshman in our program feels like they're learning a new language, and so she'll get over it. She'll bust through it, and she's going to be valuable on this road trip. Both these teams play a lot of guards. They play smaller. We're going to need her. So we have to keep her confident.
I was just going to ask about, you mentioned at the beginning there about elevation, and you've been in that. Do you make a big deal about it, or how do you handle that part?
Obviously last year we played at elevation and we made everything we shot at Colorado, so that was really helpful. Because it was a stretch too, where we played Wednesday at Colorado, Saturday here against Iowa State, and Monday on the road at K-State. And so we were lucky enough to rest 4 of our 5 starters the whole fourth quarter. So I don't know that it impacted us because we shot the ball so well. 2 years ago against BYU is arguably the worst game we've played. One of them. I'm sure there's some arguments for some others, but we do what we can. We drink beet juice, but we don't go there and do anything different. I will try to sub the best of my ability. So if that's the question, yes, I think you have to see it in them and sub when you can sub. I don't think it's the fact that TCU dropped the second game on the road trip at Utah at elevation. I think this is going to be a really tough for every team in our league that makes this swing trip, and plays 2 games at elevation. I know when we were at Colorado State and everybody played us in Air Force, we felt real good about that second game and those teams, and so I think some of it's mental, but there is obviously a physical component that you control as much as you can control. But it's definitely going to impact us that we played Sunday, and our next day off won't be until Sunday. So we'll have gone 10 days between days off. So that's going to be the unique challenge too. It's just the scheduling. Thanks.